thousands of years, humanoid life forms live in harmony. Unfortunately, an experiment that helps their dying son has accidentally brought in another destructive creature from another dimension. Now we must fight against those wicked Dimentals.
Hi, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from Meeple University on the Dice Tower for How to Play video series.
In this video, we will teach you Dimentals, Unseen Warfare, game designed by Kyur and Aaron Gall and published by Lighten Games. We're using here a prototype copy of the game, so the rules and components that you see here may not be final.
Let's get to the table.
Dimentals Unseen Warfare is a card-driven battle game designed fundamentally for 2 players, but also playable at up to 4. In the 2-player game, one player plays as the Ovens and the other as the Zolyogs, battling against each other for survival. The game utilises a blacklight called the Kyur, a gravitational machine constructed by the Ovens and Zolyogs to attempt to stabilise their dying sun. In the game, the malfunctioning Kyur will be turned on and off, revealing terrifying Dimentals as well as new powers to enhance the player's abilities. The game is a battle to the death, and the player who can best utilise their card's abilities and harness the Kyur will destroy their opponent's home base and win the game. To set up, each player chooses a faction and then takes the deck of 55 hanger cards representing that faction. These are distinguishable by the colour of the name or banner and the icon in the corner. All of these cards will show the Dimental's name on the back. Locate the drafting Dimentals, which also show Dimental on the back and, under white light, show a white flash on the front. In the beginner's game, shuffle these up and then deal 6 to each player. These are then shuffled into your hanger deck. Alternatively, you can draft your Dimentals from the full set available, going back and forth between players, but you will need to do this under the black light to see the content on the cards. Each player's home area is then set up as follows. The player takes the home base board and inserts the matching starship. The player takes one of the 3 matching rigs, putting the other 2 aside, and gets 4 tracking tokens. 1 at 10 vitality, 1 at a maximum hand size of 5, and then the other 2 stacked on each other at 1 power orb. The player's draw deck, or hanger, is placed to the left of the board. The player then leaves a space above the hanger for the sepulchre or discard pile. Players must leave space to the right of their player board for their battle zone, which contains 3 rows of cards: resource collection, gestation, and mobilization. Next, set up the orbit deck, which contains 3 types of cards: resource planets, orbit Dimentals, and coronal mass ejection. You will always use all of the resource planets, but based on your player count, we'll use a different number of coronal mass ejection and random Dimentals cards. Shuffle all of these together, then draw cards face up into the orbit region between the players. Anytime a planet or a Dimental is drawn, place it face up, and anytime a coronal mass ejection is drawn, place it off to the side, and you'll shuffle this back into the pack after setup. Stop drawing cards once there are as many planets as there are players plus 1, and then shuffle your coronal mass ejection cards back into the deck. Each player draws cards up to their starting hand limit. Finally, choose a first player, and then in reverse turn order, players will choose their starting planets by placing a rig token onto the planet. You're now ready to play. Dimentals Unseen Warfare is played in a series of turns. A turn belongs to a single player and is broken into a series of phases. And a player will go through all phases in that turn before play passes to the opponent, who will do likewise. Play passes back and forward in this manner until only one player remains alive and wins the game. I'm going to quickly take you through all the steps of a turn before coming back and talking about it in detail. First is the rally phase, which is broken into 3 steps. First, the replenishment step, where a player regains power orbs, which are currency, and any units which were engaged in battle in the previous round. Second is the draw step, where the player draws up to maximum hand size. Third is the advancement step, where the player claims any planets which were claimed on previous rounds, claims new planets, and can spend resources from planets on upgrades, such as getting additional power orbs. Then comes the assemble phase, where players will manage their battle zones. It starts with the gestate step, where players can bring new cards into play by paying power orbs. There's the teleport step, where players can teleport their crew onto their spacecraft to make them more powerful. And the flicker step, where flicker powers on cards can be executed. These occur only when the black light is on. Then comes the engage phase, which is the major attacking portion of the game. The attacker chooses which forces to engage in battle, the defender chooses which forces to block with, and both sides may play additional cards from hand into the battle. Any damages or casualties to the player's forces are then resolved. The turn is then over and play passes to the opponent. At different times during the game, certain effects will trigger the black light to be turned on or off. Anytime the Kyur is turned from off to on, the flow of play is interrupted by the Kyur phase, where any played Dimentals are resolved. Play will then continue, and certain cards will have additional effects while the black light is on. Through this video, I'm first going to talk about all of the rules without the black light, and then we'll talk about the differences under blacklight at the end of the video. The first phase of a turn is called the rally phase, and the first step is called the replenishment step. 4 things happen in this step. Firstly, you replenish all power orbs that you've spent in previous turns. Move your power orb tracker up to sit on top of your maximum power orb token. This is your currency for playing cards, and you'll have a full complement in each turn. Secondly, any forces that you attacked with on the previous turn will be tapped diagonally, and in this phase, you can return them to their ready state. Thirdly, any tactics you played on the previous round have now expired and are discarded to your sepulchre. And finally, any forces in your gestation row are now ready and can be moved up into your mobilization row. Second is the draw step. If you're holding fewer cards in hand than your current maximum hand limit, then draw cards up to your maximum. If you are holding as many or more than your current hand limit, you still draw 1 card, and then after looking at them, must discard down to your maximum hand limit. The third step is the advancement step, and this is where players will gain and spend resources to improve their home bases. As you'll recall, in setup, each player claimed 1 planet with their rig. Each planet is associated with one of the game's 5 resources. Players may claim planets and purchase advancements, and do this in any order. To claim a planet, the player retrieves the rig and then moves the planet card into the resources collected area. Then, before doing anything else, the player must refill orbit. Draw the top card. If it is a Dimental, place it off to the side but still in orbit and draw again. If it is a coronal mass ejection, resolve it, which involves turning the black light on or off, discard it, and then draw again. Only once you get another planet do you stop drawing. Finally, move your rig back onto one of the 2 open planets. This planet is claimed for the next turn. Later in the game, players may obtain additional rigs, and when there's new rigs, more planets will come into orbit. The process for claiming a planet is the same, and each rig may only be claimed once per turn. To buy an advancement, the player discards cards matching the resources required into the orbit deck discard pile. The different advancements available are outlined on the help card. There are 5 different transactions which will allow you to buy new power orbs. A crystal, heart or mind will give you 1 orb, and 2 dark matter or 2 crystals will give you 2. When you gain orbs, advance both your current and maximum power marker up the orbs track. The new orbs are available from this round. Note, however, that only 1 transaction that gives you power orbs may be completed in a single turn. You may purchase a blockade for 2 precious metal, which will increase your vitality 1 step. For a dark matter and either a heart or a mind, you may advance your maximum hand limit 1 step. This will not take effect until the next turn's draw step. You can spend a mind, a dark energy, and a precious metal to purchase a new rig. Take your new rig and then refill orbits so that there is always one more planet in play than there are rigs. Then immediately claim one of the open planets as normal, ready to be collected next turn. You can have a maximum of 3 rigs in the game. As a reinforcement, you may pay any single resource in order to draw 1 card from your hanger into your hand. Finally, you can revolutionize by destroying 5 power orbs, meaning you move both your current and maximum token down by 5 steps. This lets you gather up all cards from your hand, hanger, sepulcher, and battle zone and reshuffle them into your new hanger. This is the only way to reshuffle your deck in the game. In a single advancement step, you can make as many purchases as you can afford, with the single restriction that you can only increase power orbs once per turn. The next phase of your turn is the assemble phase, and this is where you're primarily going to be moving cards from your hand and into your battle zone, or managing your battle zone. The assemble phase has 3 steps, and you can resolve these steps in whatever order you want. These are the gestate step, the teleport step, and the flicker step. In the gestate step, you play cards from your hand into your battle zone. To play any card during this step, you must spend power orbs equal to the number in the top left corner of the card. Cards are split into 4 types: spacecraft, crew, enhancers, and tactics. Spacecraft and crew are collectively called forces, and they are resolved in the same way. First, take the card and place it into your second row, the gestation row. Then spend the power cost by moving your current power down while leaving your maximum power where it is. Forces in gestation cannot attack, but can block if you are attacked. Read the text on the force, and if it has a when entering the battle zone effect, or web effect, resolve it now. This process is the same for both crew and spacecraft. Enhancers and tactics are both considered types of upgrades, but the 2 cards resolve differently. To resolve an enhancer, flip it face up and pay its cost as usual, and then either equip it to one of your existing forces, either in gestation or in the mobilization zone, or simply leave it in gestation by itself. An enhancer does nothing while it is in gestation, so you will eventually have to equip it to a force in order to make it do anything. But it can be left in gestation indefinitely until you find a force that you want to equip it to. Once an enhancer is equipped to a force, it effectively becomes part of that force. Any battle statistics will stack, and if the force is ever defeated in battle, the enhancer will be discarded with it. The last type of card is a tactic, and a tactic doesn't properly belong in either zone. Simply pay its cost and then resolve its effect. This will either be a once-off effect or an effect which is in place until your next rally phase. Note that this is not your only opportunity to play tactics. You will have another during a battle. Your next option in the assemble phase is the teleport step. For the cost of 1 power orb, you can move a crew from mobilization onto a spacecraft, from one spacecraft to another spacecraft, or from a spacecraft back to mobilization. You may only have 1 crew member on any given spacecraft. The benefit of doing this is that the crew and the spacecraft will fight together, meaning that their strengths and defenses will be combined into one larger force. The crew also gets any flight benefits from the ship. More on that later. The drawback is that if the spacecraft is destroyed, then the crew is destroyed with it. Note that some spacecraft, specifically drones, cannot be piloted, and some crew are not allowed to pilot spacecraft. You can also use the teleport step to redistribute enhancers. For example, teleporting this crew member onto the spacecraft with an enhancer, and then teleporting away, leaving the enhancer. The final option is the flicker step, where you use flicker abilities on your cards. This occurs only while the Kyur is on, and so we'll come back to that later. After the assemble phase is complete, you enter the engagement phase, where you will engage your opponent in combat. This occurs over the following steps. First, you choose which forces are attacking. You may only attack with forces in mobilization, not in gestation. You signify the units which are attacking by tapping them diagonally. If you are playing with more than 2 players, you must also identify whom you are attacking. Then the enemy blocks. For each incoming attacking force, the opponent may choose to block with 1 or more forces. Forces which are tapped, that is, ones which attacked on that player's previous turn, are not available to block. However, upright forces, both in mobilization and in gestation, are available to block. It is the blocking player who chooses which blocking forces are assigned to which incoming attackers. The blocker may also choose to allow an attacking force through unblocked. The other important distinction is that an attacking force with the flight keyword may only be blocked by a blocker with the flight keyword. Before resolving the battle is the backfire step. Here, each player has the opportunity to play tactic or dimental cards from hand. To be able to do this, the player must be able to pay the power orb cost for the card before playing it on the opponent. In the backfire step, the defender gets the first option to play a card, followed by the attacker, and then back and forth until both players have passed. Note that while dimental cards can be played at any time, they will not have an effect until the Kyur is turned on, and that if a tactic card has an immediate effect, it will supersede any previously played tactics which contradict it. Finally, for each attacking force, resolve the outcome of the battle. Each card's attacking strength is shown in the triangle to the left and blocking strength in the triangle to the right. If an attacking force has been blocked, then check the attacking strength against the blocking strength for each pair. Any force whose blocking strength is not higher than the opponent's attacking strength is killed. So here, Zephyrius attacks with strength of 3 and has blocking strength of 2. Haz is reduced to -1 and will be killed. Meanwhile, Haz's attacking strength is 2 and Zephyrius has 3. Zephyrius is reduced to 1, so stays alive, and after this battle, only Haz would be killed. In this scenario, Aina is blocked by Haz. Both have strength of 2 and blocking of 2. Both units are reduced to 0, and so both would be killed in this battle. Here, Bo is enhanced by armor and comes in with a strength and blocking of 4. She is blocked by Ziva with attack of 4 and blocking of 5. Bo's 4 attack does not reduce Ziva's 5 block to 0, and so Ziva survives. But Ziva's 4 attack reduces Bo's block to 0, and therefore Bo is killed despite launching the attack. Attacking and blocking strength for stacked cards are added together, but even here this is a battle in which both of these forces will be killed because 8 strength beats 4 blocking and 4 strength beats 4 blocking. The blocking player may also choose to block a single incoming force with more than one blocking force. The blocking force's attacks and blocks are added together, and so here 6 attack versus 6 blocks would kill both of the blockers, but 4 attack versus 4 block in return would kill the incoming attacker. If an incoming attack is blocked in any way, even by a greatly outmatched blocker, then that player's starship or home base remains safe. In this scenario, the attacker's 5 strength would more than kill the Bugsy's 1 defense, however, the excess damage goes nowhere. On the other hand, if a force attacks and the opponent either cannot or chooses not to block that attack, then that player will suffer a loss of vitality equal to the strength of that attack. When the vitality of the starship is reduced to 0, then the starship is destroyed. That player removes the starship insert, losing the bonus power on that card, gains the bonus effect printed at the bottom of the home base, and then resets vitality to 10. Any excess damage from this attack does not carry over. That player will start with 10 vitality on the next turn. Once the player's home base vitality is reduced to 0, that player is dead and out of the game. In a 2-player game, the opponent wins immediately. After the battle is finished, the dismissal phase finishes the player's turn. Any forces killed in the battle are moved to the sepulchre, and any forces which were damaged but not completely killed will heal back to full health next turn. However, these units remain tapped and are unable to block in the next player's turn. Play then passes to the next player. Dimentals utilises a blacklight called the Kyur, which reveals more information on the cards and makes cards more powerful. Depending on the strength of your card's blacklight effects against your opponents, it may be more or less advantageous to your game to have the Kyur on. The Kyur can be turned on or off in one of 2 ways. Either by a coronal mass ejection card being drawn from the orbit deck, or when a player plays a Kyur override tactic card from hand. Either way, if the blacklight is currently on, you'll turn it off, and if it's off, you'll turn it on. When the Kyur is turned on, interrupt the current phase of play and resolve the Kyur phase. First, resolve all Dimentals in orbit. This will be Dimentals cards which were flipped up and set aside in orbit since the last time the Kyur was on. The orbit Dimentals have various negative effects which will affect all players in the game. Next, starting with the player to the left of whoever triggered the Kyur phase, each player resolves any named Dimentals cards played on them by opponents since the last time the Kyur was on. Note that when reading the text on a Dimental, it should be read from the perspective of the player whom it is affecting, not the player who played it. All Dimentals resolved in this phase are then discarded to their appropriate discard piles. At this point, play returns to whichever phase it was in when the Kyur phase was triggered, but with the Kyur remaining in the on position. Note that the entire Kyur phase will always be resolved, and if every player dies as a result of the Dimentals in this phase, then all players lose. Several things change when the Kyur is on. Firstly, all of the resource planets now show a second resource, which is hidden in the center of the planet when the white light is on. Cards can now be spent for one or both of their resources, and you can split a single card across multiple transactions. You don't receive change for excess resources, but you can always spend that excess resource on drawing a card from your deck. Secondly, as long as the Kyur is on, any Dimentals that are revealed are visible, and they will be resolved immediately, whether they come from the orbit deck or are played by an opponent. Thirdly, orb trail effects are now visible, and cards that seemed identical under white light now have unique powers under the Kyur. There are 2 types of effects, Kyur effects which are passive and flicker effects which are active. I'll go through the Kyur effects first. An alert force is not tapped when it's engaged in combat. It remains vertical to block on the next turn. A force with rush does not have to enter via gestation. It can move into mobilization on the turn it's deployed and attack immediately. A force with lead gives +1 attack to all forces in that player's battle zone. And the Kyur effects also introduce 2 higher grades of flight, Warp 1 and Warp 2. An attacker with Warp 2 may only be blocked by a blocker with Warp 2. An attacker with Warp 1 may be blocked by a blocker with either Warp 1 or Warp 2, and an attacker with Flight can be blocked by an attacker with Warp 1, Warp 2, or Flight. The last 4 effects, Smuggle, Clear Shot, Subdue, and Echo, are flicker effects. Flicker effects are resolved during the flicker step of the Assemble phase. Additionally, if the Kyur is activated during the backfire step of a combat, then the attacker has a special flicker step immediately after the Kyur phase before returning to the backfire step. Each flicker effect may be resolved once per cycle of the Kyur. In other words, once it's been resolved, it cannot be resolved again until the Kyur has been turned off and then turned on again. Players with a lot of flicker effects will tactically want to turn the Kyur on and off multiple times. Smuggle gives you an extra resource by letting you take the unclaimed planet from orbit. Clear Shot allows the force to deal 1 unblockable damage instead of attacking normally. Subdue immobilizes one of the opponent's forces, and Echo allows that force to repeat its web effect. Finally, while the Kyur is on, you'll be able to inspect all of the Kyur effects on the cards in your hand, ready to prepare. While the Kyur is off, this information is hidden. Dimentals is a battle to the death. When a player runs out of vitality on the home base, that player is eliminated, and when only one player remains, that player is the winner. But remember, if the Kyur is activated, the entire Kyur phase must be resolved. In the event that all players simultaneously die during a Kyur phase, then the Dimentals win. And that's how to play Dimentals, Unseen Warfare. We hope you enjoyed this video.
At the time of filming, Dimentals Unseen Warfare is about to be launched on Kickstarter, so we'll put the link in the description below when it is live, so you can check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please help us by hitting that like button. And subscribe to the Dice Tower if you haven't already done so.
And finally, if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please write them in the comment section below.
Until